Well, how you doing? How you doing, everybody? Good. Boy, it's a blessing to be able to share today. As I said in there, just because I'm up here doesn't mean I know everything about being a husband and a father, and because there have been times that sometimes I say, Lord, do I even know what I'm doing? It's challenging, isn't it? This workshop, as I read what Jamie asked me to speak on today, it says it's geared to help men grow as fathers and husbands. And I need that every day. I pastor a church, just a little bit of background, out in Center Hall. If I know where Center Hall is, I know. Okay. I used to be the children's pastor at State College Assembly of God with Paul Graybill. He was my mentor and pastor, and I miss him like crazy. They planted us almost 14 years ago, and so that's where we're at. And so, yeah, I gave you a sheet to look at as we go through some things here. And as I said first, I'm not the perfect dad or the husband who has it all together. I'm just learning and growing with the rest of you, but hopefully today some things the Lord has given me to share will kind of speak to your hearts and we can grow together a little bit more. I've been married 30 years. My wife and I got married when we were 12. I'm kidding. But some people, when I tell them 30 years, they're like, 30 years? And I've been married 30 years. This year, we're both 51, and so we got married young. We have 2 kids. My son Luke is 26, and he got married last summer. And it's crazy to have a 26-year-old son that's married. And our daughter Olivia is 23, and she married a man in the Air Force. His name is TJ, about a year and a half ago. How many of you today here are married?
Glance to you. That's awesome. You.
How many of you have kids? Okay. Okay. How many of you have infants? Like in the home? Okay. Wow. Pray for you guys.
Well, not infants, you're a toddler, but
okay.
My girlfriend is good.
Okay. Teenagers? Extra prayer?
Amen. That's why I'm here.
I thought terrible too was worse though.
Well,
Enjoy.
Love.
Enjoy it.
Empty nesters? I am actually. Which
You bypassed 5 to 10.
Oh, 5 to 10? Okay. I did the same. Wow. Okay. You know, we're all in stages, and it's hard to believe I've been through all these stages already, and my wife and I are empty nesters, and that's just really hard to imagine. But I want to pray and ask the Lord to really help us where we're at, because I can't do this without Him. So let's open in prayer. Jesus, we need you so much in every area of our lives, and what I'm about to share, I pray would be anointed by your Holy Spirit. Lord, that you would allow each of us, where we're at, whatever stage we're in with marriage or with our children, that you would help us through the Word and through your Holy Spirit to learn today something new, something we can take with us that will challenge us and help us to be the husbands and the fathers you've called us to be. And we pray this in Jesus' name. And everyone said, Amen. Okay, so there's some fill-ins on your page there. As I said, Jamie, when you sent me this is geared to help men grow as fathers and husbands. And those are your first fill-ins there. The first half of what I'm going to share, and I want this to be, if you have a question or a comment, hey, just interrupt and let's just talk about it a little bit and see where we're at on these issues. But the first half I'm going to share, it's going to be about fathers and 3 things that we can do or look to do as fathers that will help us in and being the best dads that we can be. The second half will be as husbands and what we can do in that area. So the first part here is fathers. And, my kids live far away. The other thing about this stage of our lives being empty nesters, our son and his wife, they live in LA, right on Broadway. It's crazy. When we go visit, it's kind of fun, but how many of you know after about 3 days, give me back to the country. They live in LA. They've been married almost a year, July. So we see them a little bit. Our daughter lives down in Pensacola, Florida. That's where her husband, TJ, is in the Air Force and stationed at. And they've been married about a year and a half. So our kids aren't close, and we miss them like crazy. I'll say this, if you have kids at home, enjoy them. The teenage years, they are hard. The terrible, you call them terrific twos. You got to rename it, you know? You don't want to call kids terrible. They're terrific, right? So they're terrific twos, some days. But whatever stage you're in with your kids, having a 26 and a 23-year-old now, enjoy them. Yeah, there's challenges, but man, they're a blessing from the Lord. But I wrote this chapter, you know, Jamie's in here right now, and when he asked me to write a chapter in the Under Construction book, he gave me the title, Being a Father to Adult Children. And at this stage of my life, I was like, really? You have to give me that topic? This is the hardest stage there is. Because I think it was harder than raising infants, toddlers, the young ones, the teenagers, because at that stage, I was making all their decisions, pretty much, for them. And sometimes I did that well, and sometimes maybe I put pressure on where I didn't need to, and I was working through all that. But now that they're adult children, why is this has been the hardest stage for me? Because they are now completely free to make the decisions on their own. And I had to get to the place, and this is true about whatever stage we're in with our children. The principles I wrote about in the book, Under Construction, are also true for children in your homes today. And I'm going to look at 3 things that I learned as a father to adult children that I needed to apply when they were in the home as well. Trust is the first one. Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. And as I said, I'm going to share quite a few verses because how many of you know the Word is what changes us in the Holy Spirit? So you know these verses probably. But Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with what?
Follow your heart.
With all your heart. And lean not on what?
Your own understanding.
Your own understanding. But in all your ways, acknowledge Him. And He shall direct your paths. And I had to ask myself the question with this first thing with trust. When my kids left the home, I had to really wrestle with, do I really trust the Lord with all my heart with my children? Or am I going to continue to try and make their decisions for them? But because now life is their own. Especially when they're making poor decisions. Any of your kids ever make a poor decision?
Oh, yeah.
More 24, so yeah.
So, okay. And I had to look at that and say, okay, do I trust what I poured into my kids? Do I trust the Lord with my children? You know, and someone told me once that your kids and their faith is going to look a little bit different than your faith. Now, I'm not talking about Jesus, you know, because Jesus is the foundation, but how they live that out. Their hair may be a little longer, right? My son, he lives in LA. He's been there almost 5 years. And he never liked to cut his hair in the first place. But now it looks cool on him. But it would be for me? No. But he has, what do they call those? You wrap it up.
Man bun.
Yeah, it's man bun. Cool looking dude, and
I'm just jealous of any hair.
I like the beard.
That's why it has to be.
But yeah, I had a guy tell me, your kids and how they live out their faith is going to look different than you. And I really had to begin to say, okay, do I trust the Lord with my children? If I really do, I'm not going to try and pressure them to be who I am. And I just have to allow them to live their faith out, as long as it's Christ, right? And allow them to live that out in a way that they needed to. I fill in there, next is, the earlier we can learn to trust the Lord with our kids, the easier it will be to do so when they leave the nest. So the earlier we can learn to trust, and I'm looking back, guys, I'm looking back saying, man, I wish when they were 8, 10, 12, 14, that I would have trusted not that I didn't, but I would have trusted the Lord more with them and allow them to maybe make some poor decisions in the home while they were still there, because I didn't want them to make poor decisions. You know what I mean? But allow them to fail a little bit so that you can love them through that and be patient with them. And that's going to be the next word. The second point is going to be patience. You know, Gina and I, my wife and I, are empty nesters, and I say this, you know, it's a good thing we still like each other. Most days, right? If you're married. You know, we still have fun together, we still enjoy each other, but when the kids leave, and it's just you and her, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, you got to make sure that you're going into your marriage now. If you do Proverbs 22, or Proverbs 3, or Proverbs 22:6 when they are little, does anybody know what that verse is? Train up a child.
In the way they should go when they're old, they will not depart.
Yeah. If we could do that when they're little, you can trust the Lord with their future. Train up a child in the way they should go. When they're old, they will not depart from it. So if we could train them up when they're little in the ways of the Lord, we can trust the Lord with their future. Second word is patience. How many of you struggle with that one? Patience with our children. And in Galatians 5, verse 22 and 23, and you know the fruit of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit is what? Love, joy, peace. I have the New King James. Long suffering. Any of you suffering long with, it feels like that? Long suffering. Kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. You ever notice there aren't 9 fruits of the Spirit? You ever notice there's one? The fruit of the Spirit is what?
Love.
And from love flows joy, peace, patience, kindness. So if we don't have that love flowing from us to our children, these other things aren't going to flow either. So the fruit of the Spirit is love. Patience, you know, you didn't hear that word, but long suffering. It seems like sometimes when we're raising our kids, we're suffering long, you know, with them through those stages. And patience is needed throughout every stage of our children's lives.
Especially when they're screaming in the back of the car.
Yeah. How about it, right? Yeah, and how many of you grew up with a father that was not very patient? Okay. Yeah. Now, did you have to work to become patient in your fathering because of that? Like really work hard at that? I know I did. And it wasn't easy because your kids are always testing your patience.
Mine was real patient.
Really?
Yeah. I never saw him
Really?
get mad because I never saw him. So there's a difference, you know, the struggle with the fact is that, you know, it's hard to be, because I'm an insta-dad. I became an insta-dad in my family, so I have stepchildren.
Okay.
So it's like it's a hard thing from going to not having any, like I tell people, I said, you know, my house was like my sanctuary, my castle, and so like it was built not kid-proof. So then when kids came in and it's like instantaneous, like there's like I told my wife, I said, we just probably need to move so that we can get a house where I don't care if they fly through a wall. You know what I mean? Like, because it won't be something that I put together that they break. You know what I mean? And so I'm learning though, and over the last 3 years I've learned to be, yeah, and it's, but that's still a rough thing.
Yeah, and you know, the patience thing, how many of you ever had kids, they ask, I have a guy in our church, he says his one boy, he's about 13 now, but when he was little, he asked why. Why is the grass green? Why is the sky blue? Why? And he said he got to the point where he got so frustrated at all these questions that he just didn't know how to answer anymore. He would be short with them because he was asking all these questions and he didn't have the patience. And you know, I was sharing with him, if you keep answering when they're little with patience, they will continue asking you those important questions when they're older. But if you cut them off and you're impatient when they're little, things that happen, you know, and they really have important decisions, they may not come to dad anymore because we're short with them. Learn behavior, yeah. So develop, that, how many of you, would you say, you can be very impatient at times with your kids, and then it kind of shuts them down. They stop asking the questions and they don't come anymore, so we got to be careful with that. So that's the second thing is, first one was trust, learning to trust the Lord with our children with all our heart, training them up in the ways of the Lord. The second one was patience, having that patience in our lives for our children. The next fill-in, impatience drives our kids away. And they won't want to come to us with questions about life later when they're older. So impatience will drive our kids away, and we need to practice that. The third one is very, I think, very important in parenting. It's modeling. 1 Corinthians 11:1. Remember when the Apostle Paul said, imitate me just as I also what? Imitate Christ. See, Paul said, he couldn't say just imitate me, because that would be wrong. He said, imitate me as I imitate who Christ is to you. And imitation, next fill-in, can be a good or a bad thing, right? If you Google imitation foods, you'll find these titles, some of them. 10 fake foods that you're probably eating. Imitation crab isn't crab at all. You'll find the title, 6 fake foods that you have in your kitchen. And how many of you know, no one likes to eat something fake when you can have the real thing. You ever go to the Outer Banks?
Yeah.
Man.
Praise God.
Come on, May. Come on, May.
Yeah, you go there regularly?
Yes.
Yeah, we did for years. You ever read The Tale of the Whale?
Yes, we have.
Man, great place. But if you go to the Outer Banks and you get real crab or crab legs, how many would you rather have that than crab out of the can?
Oh, yeah. Or imitation crab.
Or the imitation, yeah. So, when we have a choice, our kids can sometimes see us saying one thing, but what? Doing another. And I think some of the most damage we can receive as children is when we hear one thing and we don't see it lived out. We see somebody being fake and not real in what they're trying to live out. That doesn't mean we're perfect. How many of you ever had to apologize to your children?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
okay.
Just talking the talk and not walking the walk.
Yeah, that's right, talking the talk. And so we have to be careful when it comes to our kids that we are the real deal and not fake. That we are the crab we're getting at the Outer Banks and not the crab in the can or the imitation. That we are the real deal and not a fake. That's your next fill-in. Paul wrote, as a spiritual father, here's what he wrote. I kind of rephrased it. Watch how I live, and think of this as a parent. Watch how I live and imitate me as I model to you what it means to be a follower of Christ. It's not just saying we believe, right? Didn't James say even the demons believe in God, right? It's about following Jesus, right? Following Him, modeling what He is in our lives so that our kids can see it. And you just said about talking the talk, walking the walk. When it comes to parenting, our actions, the next fill-in, truly do speak louder than our words, right? My dad growing up, man, it was rough. Give you a little bit of background. I grew up in Pittsburgh. My dad, for 25 years of his marriage with my mom, ran around with guys in Pittsburgh in organized crime. Guys like named Sonny Sinsudia, Kelly Manarino, all these Italians, and he ran around with them. For 25 years, I'd watch my dad at night go out at 8 o'clock and sometimes come home at 7 in the morning when I was leaving for school. Out all night drinking, gambling, who knows doing what, drugs. And I remember one day my dad coming home and I was leaving for school and he was sitting on my bed crying and saying, I am so sorry for the dad I've been to you. And my mom at that point 25 years into marriage, said to him, I don't love you anymore. You have told me you've loved me for years and you haven't shown me. I'm done. And during that time, 3 of their parents passed away in 6 months in 1986. My dad started bleeding internally from all his addictions and habits. And this pastor came to their home and sat with them at the dining room table that I have in my home now and said, unless you guys give your lives to Jesus Christ, your marriage is done. And they did at that dining room table. They've now been married 50-some years, going on 60. My dad's actually an evangelist in Ministries. And I didn't have the dad growing up that I wanted, but it caused me to say, okay, who can I be? I didn't see that growing up, that God can redeem anyone, right? No matter how far we are, the example we had as a dad, don't let that stop you from being the dad that God's called you to be today. And I'll go see my dad Tuesday. He's having some radiation treatments for prostate cancer now. He's 78 years old on Tuesday. Good health, really, other than that little thing going on, but it's not too serious. We'll have lunch together on Tuesday for his birthday. So he's been married many years and they're doing well. So, you know, we may not have had the example, but let's be the example. Let's model what it means to follow Christ and let our kids see it without even speaking words, because they know what we believe in here, probably, right? Let them see it with our actions. Comment on that, any of that, those 3 points, or question? Yeah.
Yeah, I like when our kids come to us and point out, well, I don't like it, but I see God at work in their lives when they come to us and point out our hypocrisy, like you were saying about being fake. Just recently, I have 4 kids. Two are adopted, the younger ones, and I had one come to my wife and I, and she said, "You know, Mom and Dad, you get angry." I said, "Yeah, but you tell us not to be angry." And I said, "Yeah." and so the message is getting through. And they're seeing the fakeness or the hypocrisy in that, you know, not that we're perfect, we try. But I take that as just kind of a little sign from God that, you know what, your message is taking hold in your kids.
That's good.
Yeah, but it's humbling to us when we like, okay, our kids just pointed something out in our lives. So.
That's good. Another thought.
Well, I think when you're talking about your dad, and I hear from my sisters, and my dad didn't do some right things, but, I have to forgive him. He gave me a lot of good traits.
That's good. That's a great point, because my dad, he would always say, he taught me some good things. Be a man of your word. When he was on the streets running with those guys, and he saw in that group of men commitment to one another and being a man of your word, and he brought that into his walk, and so he taught me a lot of good things as well. Yeah.
I can kind of relate to that, because my dad was 1% for the Hells Angels, and he used to sell drugs out of my house as a kid, and before he died, like the last 3 weeks, like he kind of changed, he died from cirrhosis of liver, and that after that happened, it kind of transformed me. There was stages of addiction that I went through for 3 years, but after going to rehab, I've been sober for like 8 months, and like I'm slowly but surely changing my behavior. I quit smoking cigarettes, you know what I mean? Which is something that was really hard for me to do, you know what I mean? Now I just gotta work on me.
And let the Lord do that. And Pastor Greg, how many of you knew him? Okay? I'll never forget so many things this man taught me. The one thing I remember him saying, it's not about trying harder, it's about surrendering more. Okay? You'll never become who God wants you to be by trying harder. But it's about surrendering more. And as we surrender more to Him, then He can use us more for His glory. Because if we try and do it on our own, and that's one thing as a dad I wish I would have done I can be a perfectionist in ways, can I relate to that? And I, looking back, wish I weren't so much of a perfectionist on my children, where almost I feel like I didn't have enough grace. You know, and I know there's that balance here, because Paul talks about don't, use grace as a license to sin, right? And abuse grace. But I can also see myself where I was over here more perfectionist, like, I don't want to say legalism the whole way, but a little bit, hey, if you mess up, and I wish I would have had more. And my son, talking about how he hits it between the eyes sometimes, I remember him as he was in college, an adult, and we were sitting talking once, and he just looked at me, he said, Dad, just chill out. I'm like, that's good advice, Luke. And when he said that, it hit me, and then I started chilling out with him, and you know what happened? I began to have less stress because I'm not worrying about him, and our relationship began to improve because I just said, okay, Lord, I trust you.
I think that getting older, I'm 66 now, and I think we all deal with, my parents weren't Christians, I wasn't raised in a Christian home. I mean, I feel good parents, but didn't model Christianity, lived in the world, and I think that to some extent, despite old things passed away, we all still deal with heritage, you know what I'm saying? Call it generational curse, or whatever you want to call it. I'm finding as I get older, I have to quell that more. I tend to be more like my dad was, and my dad was a very stern man. We also, my wife and I are in a unique position. We have a daughter that's 38, and I have 4 at home that range from 11 to, well, we have a 20-year-old that's still at home. But I have an 11-year-old boy and a 13, 14-year-old girl. We adopted some children after my older daughter left.
You do need special prayer.
Yeah. Well, my older daughter is always coming to me going, Dad, what's up? I couldn't do that because we were really too strict with her.
Right.
You know, I mean, we were new Christians, and my wife is Sarge. We call her Sarge. I mean, you talk about perfectionist. She's about this much OCD,
Right.
And so what I found out though, my older daughter, I just tell her, she comes and goes, Dad, what's up with that? Well, I couldn't do that. I said, baby, we went to school on you. Okay, was that a good thing? No. I said, all right, we fixed it. But I also am finding the times as we get older, my 13 and 14-year-old, I'm dealing with stuff now with them that I didn't have to deal with when my 38-year-old was 13 or 14. Just in that time period, and the pressures on these kids are unbelievable. And I've recently retired. I retired a year ago. When I got into my house full time, I kind of found out my wife was going, no, you're going to be like me, to my girls. No, you wear this, you wear that. So I've had to step in with my wife and go, okay, baby, wait a minute. That was all right when they were 5, 6, and 7, but at 13 and 14, we need to let go. We need to let go.
Irma Bombeck, she's a famous poem writer. She wrote it about raising kids once. It's like flying a kite. I don't know if you ever read the poem, but when you fly a kite, when they're little, you have all the string in your hand. If you can do this as they grow through those early, you keep letting a little bit of string out, pretty soon they're flying a little higher. And then as they get to be 18, 19, you let that string go. But if you keep it all tight, and there's only this much string out when they're still 15, 16, it's going to be tough to let it go and watch it all fly away.
Well, and that's my point. At this age, what I told my wife is, I said, any value system that we have, we better have already instilled in there.
Right.
And what we have to do now, the only thing we have going for us is that they care enough about what we think and know that we love them and what it is to be one of God's children, that when they're older, if they have trouble, they will come to us, or they'll revert back to what we should.
And that's that last point, modeling. At that stage, you model it before them, and that speaks louder than any words, because they already know what you believe Now, let me move real quick because I gotta get to the husband's part. These scriptures, I have them where I pray in the mornings. I have them pasted there. This morning I was looking over them. The last things, I'm not gonna read them all, but these are prayers that I felt the Lord wanted me to pray for my children, and scripture verses to pray over them. It just talks about, the plans that the Lord has for them, people around their lives, giving them servants' hearts, giving them mercy and walking humbly with the Lord, and just giving them a desire to follow the Lord wholeheartedly. So I don't believe there's any greater prayers than when we use scripture. And those verses are for you to pray over your children in your prayer time. Okay, we got to go to husbands because I think I only got about 15 more minutes or so.
That's what saves our lives.
What's that?
The next part.
Yeah.
Well, even after kids leave, this is what you're still with.
This is it.
Being a husband.
You're right, man. Right now, my wife and I, 30 years, we've been married this August. And the last 5 have probably been our most challenging. Not that we don't, we still date, we still love each other, but at 50, if you have a 50-year-old wife or so, how many of you know they go through changes? Menopause and all that stuff goes. And talk about patience as a husband. If I'm not careful, man, days can go really hard. So yeah, when the kids leave, you have got to have been working on your marriage for 25 years or so, because now we're already dreaming about August, where to go for our 30th wedding anniversary. We're excited. But you got to work at your marriage. Because man, it's what saves you. When your kids are gone, if you don't like each other, you're looking at who are you? You got to work on it. So 3 things I want to talk about here is live, laugh, and love together. Live, laugh, and love together. I saw this sign I think it was a church in a restroom. It said this: never get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life. Isn't that good? Never get so busy making a living and getting so into your schedules that you forget to make a life, with your wife especially. I'll ask you a question first. I want to talk before I give you these things on live, laugh, and love together. First, why did God give us a woman?
As a helpmeet.
Okay, as a helpmate. What else?
As a companion, as a friend.
Okay, as a companion and a friend. What else?
To bear fruit.
Okay, that's a good one, right? To bear fruit. Okay. Was it to cook, clean, do our laundry, and raise the kids? Now think about it. There were no children, right? There was no clothing. They had no house to clean or dishes to wash. This is huge. Out of Genesis 2:18. Let me read this verse here.
So we wouldn't be alone.
Yeah, it says this: and the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a what? A helper comparable to him. Now, I want to kind of break down this Hebrew word for helper. That's your next fill in there, helper. First, why did God give us a woman, if you missed that? But the Hebrew word in Genesis 2:18, helper, it does not mean actually helper or even helpmate. But rather, to get to the real root of it, I read this, it means help meet, M-E-E-T. Now, the Hebrew word is ezer, E-Z-E-R, and it actually means to aid or to help us. That's where the helper comes in. So as men, we are good at doing things on our own, right? Not needing anyone's help. I can do it on my own. I don't need anybody to help me. But how many of you know, men, we need help? And our wives will probably be the first, he needs help. We need help. God gave us a help meet, to help meet our needs. And when we don't allow our woman to help us, that's your next fill-in, when we don't allow her to help us, we are actually rejecting God's purpose for our wives in our marriage. And some of us may need to deal with this area of pride in our lives where our wife, we can, if we're not careful, we can convey the message to her, I can handle this. Now, we are to be the spiritual leaders, right? But if that means us just standing up and calling all the shots, then that's not right either. But our wives can feel, if we're not careful, inferior, rather than our help meet. Sometimes we need to apologize to them and say, you know what, I am sorry. God has given you as my help meet, not just somebody that I can do what I want with, or how to clean the house, or whatever. Now, here's the interesting thing is, God uses the same Hebrew word for himself, that's your next fill, when he comes to our aid. Now listen to the same Hebrew word he uses out of Psalm 33, verse 20. It says, our soul waits for the Lord. He is our help and our shield. Man, that's pretty powerful, isn't it? That God uses that same word, that he comes to our help, that he uses for the woman that he gave us to be our help. And so she's there for that reason. Now,
How do you help
Yeah.
her?
how do we help?
Her.
What do you mean by that?
Because if her role is to get us to where we're meeting our needs, then they don't want fixed.
What are you saying?
What do we, I mean, there's like a long list of men, love your husband, love your
Right.
wives, this whole works. We
Right?
just love them?
Yeah.
That's it? And
No.
they're fine? Because
No.
that would be great.
It would be great.
Because that doesn't even touch the surface of what they need.
Right.
We don't know.
But
Yeah.
love is
Like
so.
Mel Gibson was the only one who knew at that moment and what women want, you know, that when he's running, he can hear the women's thoughts. And oh, did you ever see that movie?
No.
Oh, he gets hit by like a something like electricity, and he has this gift to be able to read women's
Oh, really?
thoughts, and so he was able
I don't
to.
know if that would be good or not.
But then he ended up being like,
Yeah.
but it's.
What were you gonna say about
I was
love?
gonna say, love is so, all encompassing.
Yeah.
It takes in everything. And it's like a sacrificial love. It's like, you want to give your wife whatever she needs, whatever she wants, not like, here's the credit card, honey, go out and
Right.
spend every, but I mean, you're to meet her every want and desire and need to complete that relationship.
Right. And then you're saying, what if she doesn't really respond to that?
Well, the sense is that we have women they're a different breed of
Yeah.
people.
Sure.
But they send me
about
hints,
Paul's-
at least my wife sends me
What about
hints.
Paul's edit that says, wives obey your husbands, husbands love your wife as Christ loved the church?
Yeah, and that love and respect, you've heard the book by Dr.
Yes.
Rich,
Yeah.
Love and Respect.
I want respect.
Yeah, and husbands, that's what they need,
Right.
is respect, and wives need love.
Love.
And what he gets into that book is this: for men, it's easy to give respect. My son-in-law's in the Air Force, very respectful. It's in us. But for our wives to show respect, that's not as ingrained in them, but love is. But for love, for men, we gotta work at that. And so
Right.
God asks us to do the hard things because they don't come natural, because we need him so much to accomplish that. Yeah.
I'm not gonna have it perfect, but I think there's like 5 love languages.
Right, yeah, very shallow, yeah.
And if you can figure out what your wife, what love languages speak to her, I try to practice all of them and it
Yeah,
works
me
pretty
too.
well.
My wife's
But there may be
bilingual.
1 or 2 that really speak to her, like,
Right.
if you need to just help out around the house, you're just all of a sudden you're the greatest. Maybe that's the only thing that she needs, but maybe she needs flowers once a month or something.
Her little gift.
Look it up,
Yeah.
trust me.
Oh no, I'm on board with
I
I wish there was more time to talk about it, but.
And I
look
wish
it
I
up.
would have brought the book. I have some copies of it, and I usually
It's
sell them
awesome.
at the table. It's a great book, The 5 Love Languages. Find out which one is your wife's, and just, or 2, 1 or 2, and just love them that way, and it does amazing.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I can talk, like, this is something that happened the other night, alright, like two nights ago. I'm home from work, I went to the gym afterwards, so that's like probably like 10 hours of straight lifting because I lift at work too.
Right.
And I got back to her house, I took a shower, and her dishes weren't done. So I sat there and I did all her dishes. Just seeing her face, like she's like, "Why are you doing this?" But she was happy at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
And
she
so-
was satisfied.
And one of the love languages is acts of service. The others are words of affirmation, physical touch, gifts, time, and acts of service. So you serving her, try this. That's my wife's, I think, is acts of service. And for years, I'd come home and say, "Is there anything you want me to do for you?" That's it. Just asking. And when you do it, it's like, oh, wow.
I think,
Just
go ahead.
1 minute testimony to you, revelation from God. Before I was a Christian, if you look chauvinist up in the dictionary, my picture was there. I mean, that was just me. And it was a conversion process. I mean, I love my wife and we have a great relationship and have. But I remember coming out of the shower one night as a Christian. I was probably a Christian for 8 years, you know, and I was aware that I had to work on my marriage to make sure that it stayed, you know, fresh.
Right.
And when I got out of the shower, I remember I was drying myself with a towel, and the voice of the Lord spoke up so strongly inside me and basically said, "Hey dummy, close the shower curtain." Now that sounds stupid, okay, but that's something that irritated my wife.
Put the toilet seat down. Close the shower.
Well, and here's what happened. Over that simple thing, okay, I closed the shower curtain, I went on with my deal, I went out, and my wife came out of the bathroom almost in tears, literally. I can't believe it. I'm like, "What? You closed the shower curtain?" And I'm like, "Honey, I'm sorry, you know." But the revelation came to me then that these things, these stupid little things, cupboard doors in the kitchen, were important to her.
Right.
And from then on, I had my love language, you know. I just needed to listen and do.
They're already done. I got, man, oh. Okay, so real quick, live together. 1 Peter 3:7, I'm gonna fly through this, but this is huge. Husbands, likewise, dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. Man, Peter was saying some big stuff here. Dwell with them with understanding. That's your next fill in there. They do have good opinions and ideas. Let them voice them and have understanding with our wives. Give honor to your wife. Build her up in front of others. Recognize her as the weaker vessel, not inferior. You are her protector, right? You are heirs together of the grace of life. And Peter said, do this so your prayers will not be hindered. You know the hardest time for me to pray, you know what it is? When my wife and I aren't getting along. It's like I can hardly pray. And so, did you get all those fill-ins there? There were a lot.
You are heirs together of the
Grace of life.
life.
Yes. And do this so your prayers will not be hindered.
How about give honor to your wife, blank?
Build her up in front of others. Build her up. Man, when you're out, you know, you just encourage her, let her know how much she's appreciated. Build her up and let her hear that. Pray with your spouse daily. Man, take her by the hand and you lead in that and say, I want to pray for you. The next point, and I'm sorry I got to rush through this, laugh together. Live together, laugh together. Proverbs 17:22 says, a merry heart doeth good like a what?
Medicine.
Like a medicine. Now, too many marriages are living with dry, broken bones, because the other part of that verse says in Proverbs 17:22, but a broken spirit dries the bones. But a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Too many marriages are living with dry, broken bones. I'm not calling your wife that, or mine. But marriage can get dry and broken rather than a merry heart that doeth good like a medicine. It's good to laugh, right? Don't take life too seriously. You know, I was reading about laughter, and don't you love when science proves the Bible true without even thinking, without even knowing it? Laughter is like a medicine. Science has proved that. How many of you hate to exercise? You hate that son?
Well,
Okay, now listen to this. But laughing 100 times a day equals 15 minutes of riding a stationary bike. If you laugh 100 times a day, a good laugh.
What do we got started?
Laughing just 15 minutes a day will burn between 10 and 40 calories. Depending on your current weight and intensity of laughter, over a year you could lose 1 to 4 pounds just from laughing. So start laughing. Stay in good shape, and that's going to help with this last part too. Love together. Okay, I got to fly through this. Love together is the last one. Song of Solomon. Isn't it interesting? Those letters SOS stand for what? Help. Men, we need help, right? That's why God gave us a woman to help us. And so, Song of Solomon. I love this verse that he says. This is my beloved. He writes this from the Shulamite who's writing this. And this is my friend. See, Solomon saw the Shulamite as not only his lover, but also as his friend. It's good to laugh. And as our wives get older, continue to tell them, man, you are beautiful. Continue to romance her. Continue to send her those flowers. You know, one of my favorite stories I heard was of an old hillbilly with a wife, and they were like the what was that show? The Beverly Hillbillies. So they had 2 kids, Junior and Sissy, and Ma and Pa. They lived out in the country. Said, let's go into the big city and find the best hotel, and let's just go spend the night. So they drive in, they load up everything up. They get into this city, right in front of the hotel, and Pa says, Ma, you and Sissy, you stay out here, Junior and I, we're going to go inside. We're going to check this place out before we do anything or before we check in. So Junior and Pa go in, and they're looking at this lobby and all this fancy stuff, and they notice over here these doors. Never seen it before. Opening and closing and numbers above and lights. And Pa's like, Junior, let's go check this out. So they go over and standing there and they're watching this old lady goes up to these doors and takes her cane and pushes a button and the doors open. She walks in, doors closed, lights flashing. A couple minutes later, the doors open, and this beautiful young woman walks out. And Pa looks at Junior and says, go get your mom. So, it's good to laugh. Don't get tired of what your woman looks like. You know, she looks at us too, right? We're getting old as well. But keep loving her. Keep encouraging her. Keep romancing her. And as you do, I know we're done, right? Sorry about that. And as we do that...
This is the hardest class.
Yeah. Song of Solomon, he wrote, next fill-in, this is my beloved, this is my lover, and this is my friend. My lover, my friend. And you know what, guys? She needs to be both. Your friend and your lover. Take time and live and laugh and love together. And remember, you're not separated. You are one flesh. And too many couples become roommates. These are your last fill-ins. Too many couples become roommates when they should still be lovers and best friends. Never stop being one. As Solomon said, this is my lover. This is my friend. Amen?
Amen.
Let me pray before you go. Lord, thank you for these men here today. Help us as we go to be the husbands, the fathers that you've called us to be in Jesus' name. Everyone said, amen.